Hello and welcome to this episode of the podcast. Today we are talking about podcasts. How you as a coach can be a great podcast guest, get booked on more podcasts, and make the podcast work for you. So let's get started. A lot of coaches would either like to start their own podcast or be guests on podcasts. Now, here's my personal opinion. I think you need to be a guest of a lot of podcasts before you build one of your own. I think by doing that, being a consumer of many coaching podcasts and also being a guest, it's going to give you a lot of options for your own podcast. So today we're going to dial in and specifically talk about guesting on a podcast. First of all, there's some logistical things that you, if you're going to make being a podcast on a guest, need to think about. The first one, microphone. Hello, friends. You need to be using a microphone, not your earbuds, not right, not a Bluetooth or a wired earbud. If you are going to make a point of podcasting, you do not have to make a large investment. This microphone that I have, that I use each and every week, I think it cost me about $36, included the stand on and plugs right into my computer on Amazon. Now, maybe you want to eventually have a podcast with a big recording studio and a fancy microphone. Great. That's all great. But we're talking about getting started as a podcast guest. The number one reason that people will shut off your podcast and that your podcast will get fewer views than or listens than everyone else is sound quality. You might be so smart, but if your sound quality stinks, people will shut off your podcast episode. So invest in a microphone. The second thing that I encourage you to do is if you are guesting on a podcast, and you will see every time that I have a guest on my podcast, you see in the videos the video clips, if I'm wearing these, it means I have a guest episode. The reason why is because there's no feedback. So either get a Bluetooth for your ears and a microphone for your sound, or you can also use wired earbuds for your ears and a microphone for your sound. $20 on Amazon. Now, I record on Zoom. I have also been a guest on StreamYard. I've been a guest on Descript. Every place that I've been a guest, I get to choose my own mic and choose my own speakers. Those are two options. So you choose in, and your sound quality just dramatically improved. The next thing is I need you to think about whether or not there's a video component. So like for myself, I don't record my guest episodes with video. I do my solos, but I do record the video and then we use that video as clips. Now, not only should you look the way you want to look, which doesn't mean fully make-upped, but it might mean maybe not in your jammies. The second thing is think about the space around you. Does your background look good? Or are we just going to do like just a blur background? Blur background's not that great. I also want you to think about, here we go, camera angle and camera closeness. So many of my guests are doing podcasts with this much of their face in the middle. Now, I will tell you that when we crop to be able to drop on social media, we crop from here to here. It is like they become the giant Wizard of Oz, the great face in your screen. Sit back a little. Sit back a little away from your camera. Have a little space above your head, not Here's the other thing that I see all the time is this. Yeah, I come to you from the land of Munchkin Land. Not so much. Have a little space above your head, be able to see a portion of your torso. Because now when it crops me like this, not like this. Does that make sense? It's something you don't think about until you start running a podcast and you start noticing how things clip. Okay. How to get more podcast gigs. Put it out there, my friend. What groups are you a part of right now? What networking groups are you a part of? That you can say, hey, I'm looking to guest on more podcasts. I talk about this subject, or I'm this type of coach. Don't have a completely prepared script. I had some people who I had met through a podcasting group that they were trained that they should move into a podcast with a specific title in mind. Here, I will give you the title of my podcast. That's weird. How about if I ask the questions as the interviewer and then create the title from there? So that's a little strange for me. Now, I know there are some podcasts out there where they love for you to give them like 3 questions to be able to ask. They really want you to be able to get asked the questions you want. That's not the way I run my podcast. I do more of an organic interview style. But I do have a form and an application to fill out. Fill them out, friends. Fill them out fully and completely. There are some people that are like, I don't want to fill it out. I just want to be on podcasts where I don't have to fill it out. Podcasts that don't have you fill out some paperwork ahead of time are not well produced. Guarantee. When I have you fill out that form ahead of time, you're giving me your links to put in the social, or put in the show notes. You're giving me a biography. You're giving me an update of who you are, what you're about, so that I can prepare as an interviewer. You're giving me your picture. You're giving me everything that I need so that your episode is well produced. It blows my mind the people that, right, that they'll be in a group. There are some Facebook groups specifically about being a podcast guest. I will drop in there, hey, I'm looking for coaches to be on my podcast. They will say, pick me, pick me. I send them a link to the form to fill out their information. And I think, oh, they'd be a great guest. And then I don't see their form. I don't see their form. I follow up and they say, oh, you wanted me to fill out a form. I'm not going to do it. That's not the way I do things. Cool. You don't get to be on my podcast, but cool. Fill out the forms. It's a way to gather all the information about you so that we can produce a great episode. So if you want to be on more, I have never, and I will probably never, use a speaker one sheet to pick my podcast guest. I don't. Maybe if you have some kind of like an agent who's booking for you, maybe. And there are agencies out there that will do that. I will tell you this though, make sure you vet your agency. Make sure they're using an email directly back to you. Because I get people all the time in my inbox pitching me like, here's somebody who sold the most tires in San Diego back in 1989. We think they'd be great on your podcast. Have you listened to my podcast? Like, that has nothing to do with anything that I talk about. So if you're hiring an agency and they're supposed to do 10 pitches a week, but they're just pitching any random podcast, you are wasting your money. It doesn't take a lot. Go into the Facebook groups, fill out the forms, and just like back in the day when we had to apply for a job, if you really want to be on that podcast, don't just fill out the form and then forget about it. Reach out and say, I hope you got my form. I love this episode of your podcast. Here's the question that I really love that you asked. A little flattery will get you a long way when it comes to podcast guesting because it draws the guests or the host's attention to you as a guest. Now, those are a couple of logistics that are going to make sure that your podcast gets played because you have good audio, that you get on more podcasts. But here's the third thing. How do you prepare yourself to make sure that you're getting the most from your podcast episode? I'm assuming you are podcast guesting because you would like clients. If I am wrong, then ignore this next bit of advice. The reason you are podcasting is so that this audience here can come and be your audience. If the podcast guest or the podcast host has 100 people or 200 people or 1,000 people that listen to their podcast regularly, you're trying to get 10 of them to come and be in your audience. The way you do that is by bringing them into your audience. Where does your audience live? See, if you have an offer like connect with me on LinkedIn, you're not going to get 10 people out of their 100 to come over and connect with you on LinkedIn. If you have a lead magnet, you can pull part of their audience over into your audience. Now, the lead magnet has to be good. The lead magnet has to be good. There has to be a value to that listener. The majority of people listen to podcasts not in front of their desk. They listen while they are at the gym, while they are in the car, or while they are walking. I have a lead magnet, and it's a list of 7 things that you can do so that you don't feel stuck, like deep breathing. Okay, thanks. No. I put together a workbook that allows people to work through the reasons they specifically have anxieties and then 3 solutions to be able to apply for each type of anxiety that that person has. What type of anxiety do I have, the listener thinks? I would like to know that. See, it's a positioning thing. For myself, I have found that when I am able to give away a significant valued gift, so I'll give away my course sometimes on podcasts when I guest, and I let people know this course normally costs this much. For the first 20 people who use this code, they'll get it for free because that's how much I believe that coaches need to learn why they're not getting clients and what they need to say to get clients. All of a sudden, people want that course and they join my audience. They sign up for that free lead magnet, and now they're in my email list and I get to market to them. The other reason that you are going to be on podcasts, the other way you're going to get clients from being on podcasts is by using your own audience. It surprises me how many people podcast guest, and you go through the application process and you go through getting ready for the podcast that day and you show up and you do the interview. And that podcast person says, here's the episode I've produced. Here's all the marketing assets that I've produced for you. Let's share it together. And people don't share it. Because sharing it with your audience that maybe your friends are on your social media, maybe your family is on your social media, it can feel a little vulnerable. What if my sister hears this? What will she think? What if my husband listens? What will he think? If you're not comfortable and confident in the work that you do yet, that is a place you need to start working before you podcast guest. Don't waste your time podcast guesting and then not share the episode. Share the episode. What it does is it raises your authority and your expertise. In your audience right now, you have 5, 6, 7 people who are ready to start working with you. But see, they forgot about you. They forgot about you because they don't check their email, or maybe they gave you that junk folder email. So when you send out the emails, they're not seeing them. They forgot because they see you on social media, but they don't quite understand fully what you're about. But when they listen to a long form podcast interview, they're like, oh, that's what she's about. I want to work with her. If you are not sharing, you are missing half the reason to even do the podcast. I watch it in the numbers all the time. As a podcast host, I can see the numbers of downloads and the numbers of listeners. It might surprise you to know that even when we had less than 100 downloads every month, we were still in the top 10 of all podcasts. It doesn't take a lot of downloads to put you in the top 10, even the top 5 to 7% of podcasts. But I can tell when it's just me doing the promotion as opposed to me and the guest doing the promotion. The numbers don't lie. The listenership goes up dramatically. Now, on a completely different day, we can talk about, or if you're actually going to use podcasting as a strategy, maybe what we need to do is one of my new CSI calls, right? Clarity, strategy, impact calls, specifically around how to be a podcast guest, how to get more podcast guest opportunities. And we could develop a lead generator for you with you. We could set you up to know where to find podcasts specifically that have your audience. And how are you going to convert and use them? And how do you take that podcast and make it evergreen, something that's always working for you, or repurposed into other pieces of content? All of those things are very, very possible. I'm not going to get into all of them on today's episode of the podcast, though. For that, we need to have some one-on-one time. If you're interested in a CSI call, it's a 90-minute clarity, strategy, and impact call. We get you super clear on your next moves, and you can use it to either be very specific about something like a podcast, or we can use it to be more generalized. How do I get my business momentum going forward? Where am I confusing my clients? Where is my branding not working and a little bit yucky? All of those things, auditing your marketing, auditing your website, are included in a CSI call. We'll talk to you real soon.